And I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the quality of legal services provided by other lawyers. Welcome to Backstory Podcast. I'm Harry Steele, Backwoods Southern lawyer. Got my buddies Paul Ripp. How's things down in Fairhope, Paul?
Ripp Report, nonprofit. Everything's kind of crazy right now with the virus everywhere.
And Rains, how are things in Houston?
Well, the Houston chief is holding it down here. We're still locked in, still not going out, still keeping the family safe, but we're getting by.
So I want to talk some numbers real quick. Baldwin County is over 200 confirmed cases right now. We'll get to that in a minute, but the numbers in Alabama, right at 8,900. That was as of yesterday. And of course, you can see the numbers here, 6,800 on April 29th. So everybody's familiar with this gating criteria. We're supposed to have a downward trajectory in influenza-like illnesses reported within a 14-day period before we relax any of the public health orders. And here's another snapshot going all the way back to March 24th when we only had 242 cases. And this is the week before and last week and now this week. So here is a graph, and this came directly from the Alabama Department of Public Health. And I can tell you that on May 7th, we had 355 cases, which is the largest number of cases we have had in a single day. And here again, you can see the growth in COVID-19 cases in Alabama, and you can see there is no flat or declining trajectory over any amount of time that I can see.
So we're going to celebrate the day after the highest number. We're going to celebrate by opening up.
That's what we're doing here in Texas, Paul. God bless Texas.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
So are you guys seeing the Johns Hopkins map?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. So that shows you where the U.S. is. 1.281 million with 76,000 global deaths. And you can see the logarithmics on that. And I got one more for you, and then we'll move on. How's that strike you, Paul Ripp?
Wow. I'll tell you what, somebody got to be
not
paid.
8,100, but 9,200. Okay, so this is the state of Alabama Department of Health's own website that we're looking at right now. Here's that daily number I was showing you. And it's going to be interesting to see what the final count is today. Like I said yesterday, 356. And this is a helpful website. It has a lot of the testing sites that are available. One's right there next to my office. All right, guys. I'm kind of over the numbers and all that. Do you guys want to move on to the case at hand?
Sure.
All right. Well, let me share this and we'll get to it. You seeing that, Paul?
Yeah.
Great. So we filed a writ of mandamus. We asked the circuit court to enter an order instructing the sheriff of Baldwin County to enforce the governor's safer at home order, or the state health officer, Dr. Scott Harris's amended stay at home order, which was in effect through the 15th. It's now been amended, and we can get into some of that. So Paul, why don't you, you're the plaintiff.
Have you got the order from the judge? I mean,
I do. There it is.
all right. So we can read it to people that are listening. This was issued late this evening. I understand the issue. The order, and have no qualms with it, really, other than I don't know what else we could have proved other than the sheriff using his own words. But the order reads, an emergency hearing was conducted today, and after all parties presented evidence and testified, the court finds as follows. The petitioner, Francis Paul Ripp, failed to present any evidence of judiciable controversy for the court to declare. Any statement made by Sheriff Mack standing alone does not rise to the level of proof necessary for the petitioner to prevail on his claim. As such, a petition for writ of mandamus is denied. Now, of course, this was conducted in front of a judge, and one of the outcomes was that the sheriff assured us several times in the conversation that he was going to uphold the order. So I'm perfectly content. That's what we were trying to get done. However, I still think that it sends a very, very, very bad message when we are trying to comply with the health department and the governor, and then the sheriff injects himself in this way, and then when called out on it, starts saying that, the health department can do this and they can do this. He's the sheriff. He made the statements, not the health department. So hopefully, I think the sheriff understands a little bit better what our intent was on this, and that is to obey the order. And by him doing what he did, he encouraged people to violate the order and to basically drop any waiting of time from the governor or anything else and just go ahead and do whatever you want to do. So now we will have 14 days from today, which will be 21st, 22nd. We'll look at the number of cases that we have today, and we'll see just what happens, because it was easy enough today to see a radical change in the traffic and people on the road. So something changed everybody's mind to jump out there and get going. And I believe that Sheriff Mack talked quite a few of them into thinking it was A-okay, no problem. So we'll just go from there. But I'm satisfied with the way that it ended up, and the sheriff's assurances that he would abide by the order of the governor.
Rains, questions, comments, dirty jokes?
Well, what we've got here is a failure to enumerate. What the sheriff wanted was to pander to a political base. He wanted to let all of the deep red Republican voters of Baldwin County know that he ain't listening to no voice from up north, even if it means just north of I-10. By God, he is walking the Ron DeSantis golden path toward complete political undoing. Mm-hmm. If you guys know your neighboring state down in Florida, the governor of that state, Ron DeSantis,
he's
has
a
completely
former Navy SEAL with a smoking hot brunette wife. Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, that may well be, but he's also got pretty much the ruination of a political career right now, because he wanted to jump the gun because he is a Trump cultist to the highest degree. And he wanted to pander to that base to make sure that they reelected him. And a lot of that base is dying in South Florida right now. And it's because he didn't do anything quick enough. The political pandering is going to have a reckoning. And there is no doubt in my mind that the political victory that we won today by having the sheriff admit in a hearing in front of a judge that he would indeed enforce the law, that's a win as far as I'm concerned, because that's what Mr. Ripp's writ was all about. The judge may have denied it, but we've got the sheriff on the record saying, don't worry, I'm going to enforce the law.
And I'm sorry, Raines. We also had, I did several calls from people that thanked me for taking the action because they didn't feel as if they were being represented at all in the conversation. So that made me a little bit more proud of what we did as well.
Absolutely, Paul. That's what you do as a consumer advocate, is give a voice to the voiceless, to the people out there that don't understand how these mechanisms work, to the people that don't know that you can call a journalist anytime, day or night, and get a fire lit under them to go for a story. That's what we're here to do. That's what you do with the Ripp report.
Right.
And I'm happy to say that the story of this writ being filed and the fight that we undertook earlier today was carried by 6 major media outlets in the Alabama market. So it's not just something that got swept under the rug. The word got out that we are not going to sit idly by and allow people in power to run roughshod over the law.
And
Simply put.
And I can assure you that the sheriff is going to get pushed back by other authorities as well, because they're not going to appreciate him stepping out like this at this time. And we will not know what is, said behind closed doors, but I can assure you that he'll get a phone call from somebody saying, what in the world are you thinking?
Well, let's listen to this real quick, guys. Hold on a second.
All right.
Limiting the number
Pay
of
attention.
groups or people that can be in one location. But that responsibility should
Turned up, Harry.
That responsibility should lie with each business and with each religious institution. And so I wrote a letter yesterday asking Governor Ivey to immediately modify her current order and allow Alabamians to go back to work and to go back to worship. I think this is important to our community. In that spirit, I've also, in consultation with my deputy sheriffs and other law enforcement, I have also added that while we will continue to notify businesses if they are in violation of the governor's order, we'll notify them that the governor's order is still in place, because there are other institutions out there that are a part of this. There's the health department, and there are many regulatory agencies outside of the sheriff's office that have a say in the enforcement of that rule. But the sheriff's office will not take any law enforcement action on those businesses or on those religious institutions that are wanting to meet and wanting to get back to business. To deny an order is just to deny it. But what
So
That's what our writ basically ruled on. To deny an order is just to deny it. But if you're going to be a sworn lawman in Alabama and get on a personal platform and say, you know what, I don't like the law, I'm not going to enforce it, we're not all right with that.
Right.
We're not all right with that at all.
Well,
Right.
and all I'm saying is or what Mr. Ripp alleged was that it wasn't in his discretion to make that decision. It's an order. He should enforce it, not just notification, but take it to the limit. There was a let me see if I can find it. My Exhibit B real quick.
Well, another thing that was said during this too was that Sheriff Mack insisted that he spoke with other law enforcement officers, and people mentioned the Attorney General And then when asked specifically about what was said or in reference to the order, he backed up and said, oh, well, he didn't mention that he wasn't going to abide by the order to the Attorney General. So what did he say and who did he speak to, you know?
Well, there was a guidance letter from the Attorney General to law enforcement in Alabama that directed them that there were teeth in the code that they could utilize to write misdemeanor citations and take people into under custodial arrest,
Right.
For each occurrence. And I mean, there's some real teeth in it. That's serious business. And when you tell people all you're gonna do is notify them, that's not full enforcement.
No.
Or that was our argument.
That's correct.
So where to now?
And the other thing too is that we want people to understand one part of the legal argument as well was that at the present time, we could not prove that the sheriff had not enforced it. And that is true. We didn't have a particular incident where the sheriff was in question as to whether to arrest somebody or what to do. He had said that he had a few calls, but all of them he thought were frivolous and not worth even discussing. And remember now, we filed this one day after the fact of what the sheriff said. So certainly any evidence that we had would be here in the future, not immediate. But like I said, I understand the judge's order.
So moving on to the amended Safer at Home order that goes into effect May 11th, restaurant and bars may open with limited seating, 6 feet between tables, subject to additional sanitation rules and guidelines. Athletic facilities such as fitness centers. I mean, I wouldn't go in a damn gym until there's a vaccine. I don't know about you guys. The beaches.
I wouldn't go into a gym if you ordered me a pizza.
The beaches, there's no limit on the size of gatherings. They just must maintain 6 feet of separation from people that aren't in their party or in their household. All retail stores are open, subject to 50% occupancy, social distancing, and sanitation rules. Nightclubs, theaters, bowling alleys, casinos are all still closed. Medical procedures are allowed in the future by the state health officer based on the availability of PPEs and that type of thing. Senior citizen programs are still suspended, except for Meals on Wheels, where they're going to do drop-offs or deliveries. Educational institutions are still closed for in-person instructions. Child daycare facilities must not allow more than 12 children in one room. I don't know if y'all have ever seen them herd cats at a daycare, but I don't know how the hell they're going to get away with actually implement that. And you still, while you can go to the beach and do all that, you still can't go to the nursing home and see your grandma. You can't go to the hospital and see Paul when he gets coronavirus.
Oh, God.
Well, if you was looking for somebody to get on a soapbox, I got one built and ready to go about all that, and it applies nationwide, not just Alabama.
Well, go for it, man.
The push to get people back to work is an absolute and utter declaration of war among the poor and disenfranchised of this country. The rush to get people back to work enables the states to stop paying unemployment claims. The Washington administration has pushed for this for one reason only. They want the unemployment numbers to go down. And they've learned through all of this COVID testing that if you don't have people applying for unemployment, the numbers will steadily trickle down. And that's the only thing the White House cares about, is that number trickles down before November 3rd. Nobody cares about the $8 an hour dishwasher. Nobody cares about the $10 an hour roofing laborer. Nobody cares about the minimum wage, $7-something, $25 an hour person working the drive-through window at McDonald's. Nobody cares about that. They don't care what happens to them. They don't care what happens to any of them. They just want them off the dole.
Well,
And
I
that's
think
what
I think Governor Ivey may care about them, and that's something that I wanted to talk about. The Alabama legislature made a move to completely take control of how the CARES Act money is spent.
Damn.
Governor Ivey sent them an ass burner, son. I'm talking about a sure enough hate letter saying, "You monkeys go ahead and take control of this, and you do whatever it is you're going to do, but you're going to tell me what it is before I call a special session." And right here on the screen, you'll see I've already seen one of the wish lists that includes $200 million for a new state house, which is totally unacceptable.
My God. With everything
So
we got going on, the prisons, all the problems Alabama has, let's build a new state house. Wow.
Well, it is
Well,
full
I'm
of
sure-
mold.
The
Well, so
governor,
does everybody in it.
the governor of the state of Texas proclaimed that they were revamping the unemployment program for the state of Texas. I personally, when all this started, and still have not been whacked out. I don't know how that's working in Alabama, but if the state gets a hold of and pushes money into the state unemployment system, that doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to start getting checks right away. That just means that more money's been allocated to it, and the red tape is going to chew it up, spit it out, and you'll get nickels on the dollar for what you've invested. People need to organize. People need to get together and, you know what? We are not going to have our lives put at stake so you can get a stake. I'm just not having it. And I'll speak up on that, and I'll stand on it, and I'll help anybody willing. If they want to organize and get up against this thing, shoot me an email. I'll tell you how.
It'll end up just like the BP money.
Oh, and that's the next little issue that we get Paul Ripp riled up about. Y'all ready for this? It's the 10th anniversary of Senator Pittman's no-bid contract with the city of Fairhope.
This was
Holy cow.
This was the
Boom,
first.
boom, Pittman.
That's right. 10 years ago today, as trustee of the, now he wasn't even, I think it was the 11th when he was appointed the trustee. So this was even before he was a trustee. He was working with the city of Fairhope to get a contract on whatever was needed. They didn't even know what they were going to do with the boom, but he was working his way in there to get the debris removal, if you will, or marine contract. And remember now, Mr. Pittman did not have a marine insurance. He did not have a general contractor's license, and he had never done any business involved with marine ventures. None.
Oh, it was an emergency, man. Didn't have time to get
Well, it was an emergency, but you still were required to maintain marine insurance and have a general contractor's license. And he did not have a general contractor's license. In fact, his company did not for quite some time later, and it was one of his employees that got the license, not him.
That's right. That's right.
But this is
Paul, can you give us a quick rundown of how much money he got versus how much money was spent?
what the total amount that he got from Fairhope was $636,000. And the interesting part of it was that Mr. Pittman started working on the contract a good 2 weeks or 3 weeks before he had a secure contract. The contract was not approved until June 4th. And on June 10th, he received like $350,000 out of the 636. And that supposedly was for work that he had done, but that was only 5 days after he was awarded the contract. So this was back paying him for work that he had done prior to even having the contract.
Whoa, Paul, are we going to penalize a go-getter like that? Are we going to penalize somebody that's willing to get out there and get the job done when nobody else? He don't even have the contract, and he's out there spending money out of his own pocket, isn't he?
Well, it's like Mr. Pittman said, we do things different in Baldwin County, and he never said anything more truer than that.
I was negligent in my duties running the podcast, and I need to share one more thing with you guys.
All right. Yeah.
We're going to enforce some of the restrictions placed on churches, restaurants, other things that will be opening on Monday. What's your message to those law enforcement officers?
Well, the law enforcement officers, if you're talking about sheriffs, they are constitutional officers, and I would just encourage them to abide by the law. Today we are relaxing the issue about the churches, and each minister or rabbi or leader of that faith will make that decision of how to manage people, because there's no restriction on the number of people as it has been. So maybe that'll.
Let me break that down real quick in terms that some of our newer viewers can understand. A lot of y'all I know are probably fans of colleges that play in the Southwest Athletic Conference. So what that's called is a punt, and it's what everybody else does on fourth down, is they kind of punt the ball away. Governor Ivey said, I hope that they abide by the order, and then punted to religious leaders, saying it's going to be incumbent on them to enforce the distancing and everything else. And by God, I know we can count on the religious leaders of South Alabama to do the right thing when it comes to enforcing the governor's order.
Well, here's what I will tell you. There will be a very big difference in what you see if you decide to go to worship at Fort God down there at Malbus. What's it called, Paul? City Hope. You'll have a lot different type of because you have a different type of congregation. I'll assure you they will have to have certain procedures in place, or people will show up and see nobody with mask and all that, and I've got a feeling people will turn around, as opposed to some of these other religious institutions where it's a more rural setting, and I don't think those people are taking this as seriously as some other folks that I've seen. Let's put it that way.
And here's the other thing too.
And we're seeing that socioeconomically across the board is what I'm saying.
Correct. And people say, well, why nursing homes? Why nursing homes? What's happening there? Well, that is the nurses as well as the visitors that are visiting those people. They're the ones. Pardon?
There still are no visitors at hospitals or nursing homes under the new care.
No, I'm talking about that initiated it when it first got into these nursing homes. That's how it got in there.
I agree, no doubt. And that's how it's still getting in, is the staff coming and going.
Right.
Unless it's being carried by mosquitoes or something else we don't know about at this point.
Let me throw a little tidbit in there so y'all can understand. I come from a hospitality background. I did it for many, 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 many years. Decades I've worked in the food and beverage industry. Do either of you know what the biggest dining day is in the calendar year?
4th of July.
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
And what day is Mother's Day this year?
Sunday.
And when does the order expire?
On the 11th.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, every restaurant that can put together 100 tables in a 100-table setting is going to be full on Mother's Day. And guess what?
Everybody's going to be going to see Grandma.
And there's
everybody's going to take Grandma out to eat because they don't have any damn sense, and they don't care about your grandma. They only care about theirs. So they're not going to social distance. They're not going to mask up and glove up. I hope they do, but something tells me they're not. And let's see if we see a spike in cases come Monday. It'll be all right.
Well, what I have heard nationally is that approximately 83% of the people are abiding by the social distancing and are very cautious about opening up. It's only about 17% that, want to open or are pretty radical about it. Now, given that we're in Baldwin County, I would double that and say probably 34% here think that it's a good idea to go back to work. And let me tell you, I pray to God that we don't have a second shot at this and it doesn't get worse, and that it's not spread by us jumping ahead like this. But one thing's for sure, we're going to know in, just about 14 days, we're going to start seeing what the result is.
Don't worry about praying to God, Paul. There's going to be plenty of people Sunday gathering in houses of worship without masks, without PPE, and they're going to be praying to that same God that everybody don't get infected. Well, guess what? I doubt he's listening, because he says, if you ain't got sense enough to put on a mask when one of the greatest weapons I ever created is caterwauling across the country, well, I'll just add another gate to what we've got up here already.
Yeah, one other thing too, Harry, that I'd like to mention that's related to the virus, and any of those on social media will know what I'm talking about. This last week or so, we've had several items on social media circulating. One was a short documentary with a scientist. The other was 2 doctors telling us, we don't need masks, we don't need this. And these were professionally done. They looked like they were very authentic. Well, this morning they outed them all, took them all off Facebook, took them all off any of the social media networks that they were circulating on as totally fake news. And people were buying into it 100%.
So I got to jump in here. I watched that anti-vax. So the scientist that you're talking about used to work at Fort, which one is it? Range where they do research.
Fort Dix?
No, she worked at Fort Detrick.
Okay. And she, anyway, long story short, she was accused of stealing some data, and she claims that Fauci and some other people, and that, one of the things that is compelling about her story, and something that we need to look into, is the fact that sometime in the 1970s, there was some federal legislation that was changed that allowed for scientists working for the public to patent their vaccines. In other words, if they were working at the National Institute of Health and they came up with a vaccine, or they came up, let's say the genomics lab that came up with the DNA profile of the virus or whatever, they can patent that and they can make money off of it, even though they were working for the public when they created it. And that's what she's saying. She's saying, oh, the reason Fauci wants to throw away the chloroquine and all this stuff is that it's free. And he thinks he's going to get in on some patent on this new vaccine that everybody in the damn world's going to have. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm sure some scientist who comes up with it is going to have, if they're working at UAB or some other public institution, the law says they're entitled to that. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, under our capitalist system, we tend to reward people in that case. But what she's saying is the people in charge are also the people getting the patents, and they're steering things in that direction. I don't know if that's true or not, but I would like to look into the validity of her claim that these people have a financial incentive of steering treatment. Now
there is no validity claim to anything that woman said or anything that those 2 doctors said, namely because none of their research is peer reviewed. None of the stuff they talked about.
Let me tell you what I heard in the first 5 minutes of this thing. She said, once you're infected, you have a lifetime immunity to the coronavirus. And I'm sitting there going, hell no, you don't. You can get 4 colds in a year, and that's a coronavirus. And nobody knows if you can be reinfected again. Nobody.
We've had documented cases worldwide of coronavirus, of SARS-CoV-19 reinfection. It's all quack science. And I'm here to tell you, look at your research, peer review your research. Not everybody's got the time I've got. In between consulting, I spend a lot of time reading research, reading scientific papers, vetting things that I see on social media and in the media itself.
Check out my bag of clay. That's what I do instead of researching peer review articles on. Yeah.
Yeah, you distill clay. That's beautiful.
Isn't
I
it?
can't wait. I can't wait to
Wait
see
till-
the ashtray
wait
you make out of it in
till-
summer camp.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you, Raines. Who would you rely on as the leading most authority in the United States if you had to rely on someone for information on the virus?
The Centers for Disease Control. Absolutely.
Okay. Now that's my point right there. I keep seeing people online and on social media saying the Center of Disease Control doesn't know what they're doing. They're a bunch of quacks and going on and on and on. People, you don't understand that this is the Center for Disease Control. These are the people that have been doing this for, my God, how long have they been around? 50 years? And going to foreign countries to handle this. The problem with the United States is, or the problem that we're having, is that we have never seen a pandemic. We have never been hit in the face with it.
Right.
And that's what's happening now.
So I'm gonna say this one last time. We need a Norman Schwarzkopf type son of a bitch standing up there with a pointer saying, here's the virus. Here's how we're going to treat it. Here's the plant that's going to make the PPEs. Here's the this. Here's the that.
Well, you're not going to get that.
Horse shit about I've ordered this company to do this and that. I mean,
You're not going to get that because the current president thinks he's a Norman Schwarzkopf up there doing that, and he's not. He's more like a Norman Bailey, and he's not doing any of those things. All right? If you wanted to put a person on the moon, all right, who are you going to go to get your data, to get your telemetry, to get your research? You're going to NASA, right? Are you going to go to Arnold Rocket Shop in Sims, Alabama, and say, you know what, these guys over here know a hell of a lot more about space travel than the effing NASA does? Well, that's what a super majority of people who believe in that Norman Bell in the White House are getting their research from. Bob's Rocket Shop in Sims, Alabama, because he wants to sell some rockets. So he's going to say, to hell with NASA. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Come on down to Bob's Rocket Shop. I assure you, we fit your narrative.
So I have one more very inflammatory slide to share. And remember, Raines, no terrorist, or we're going to be kicked off Facebook.
Oh my God. God,
okay.
So it's my understanding that the Justice Department dropped all criminal charges against Michael Flynn, even though he admitted and pled guilty to.
He pled guilty twice. Twice he pled guilty.
Do you guys feel that?
To lying to the FBI.
I've been feeling it today for days. Have y'all been feeling that? It's like a low-level vibration. Do y'all feel it? Because I feel it. You know what that is? It's John Mitchell spinning in his grave like a dynamo. His headstone in Arlington has been generating about 18 watts of electricity. That some bitch has been twisting so much in his grave since this happened. Unbelievable. The United States president has co-opted the Justice Department to become his in-house counsel. And why there are not people with torches and harpoon guns and pitchforks and everything else walking up and down Pennsylvania Avenue, I don't know.
And Roger Stone will walk too, probably, or be pardoned. The other one thing,
pardoned.
Do what?
I always assumed these guys would be pardoned in the end.
Yeah. Well, there's only one other thing I want to jump back on the virus, and that is that the president has been selling us lately on the fact that testing is not all that it is made up to be. However, he is being now tested every day. So, you know, it sends a very confusing picture to the citizens of the country that we don't have tests, we can't get a test. And now the White House staff and the president are getting a test every single day. So, you know, that adds to the confusion of what people believe and what they don't believe. You're just going to have to do more research on social media than to believe some of these conspiracy theories that are out there about reduction in population and stuff like that. I mean, some of them are so nonsense that, you can't even believe that they get air.
I just, I really, my thoughts and prayers are with the wife of Stephen Mitchell, Stephen Miller. His wife is the vice president's chief of communications. She's tested positive for COVID-19. So my thoughts and prayers are with the Miller family right now. Then that I hope and I pray and I think that if they end up going to Johns Hopkins or to Andrews Air Force Base to get treated for COVID-19, that an immigrant doctor takes care of them.
Well, I don't know where it's going, folks, but I would suggest that you listen to the CDC. I would suggest that you keep social distancing, and I would suggest that you wear a mask. And any of you that totally disagree, that's fine. You're a minority statistic that happens with every single episode or whatever it is, whatever controversy or whatever. There's always, 25, 30% that believe no matter what is written or no matter what's in front of them, they're going to believe the other. So,
Absolutely.
I guess we just have to live with that. But I am pleased to know that the greater majority of people are taking this seriously. It's just unfortunate that a small minority might ruin it for all of us.
Well, small minorities have ruined it for everybody. Just ask Governor Wallace. The thing I'll say is that it is up to you. The government's not going to guide you. We've seen a massive failing in that. Your governor is not going to guide you. We've seen massive failings in that nationwide. Your local leaders really aren't going to guide you. You've got to guide yourself. Wear a mask. Wear PPE. Protect yourself, because you're not only protecting yourself, you're protecting other people. Even though you probably don't give two happy goddams about them, you still owe your fellow man to say, you know what? I'm not going to do everything in my power to further an infection outside of my home. I'm going to do everything in my power to keep it from spreading in my home and in yours. And I'm going to tell you this right now to all you folks that love to fit narratives. If you stood up and said, those bakers in Missouri that said they didn't want to bake a cake for them homosexuals, they got that right. Well, that same right applies to business owners who say you got to wear a mask if you want to come in my establishment. So if you don't want to argue that, go get back in your truck with your Blue Lives Matter sticker and drive up to the Capitol and strap on an AR-15 and go protest in front of the governor's office. Yell at some cops while you're doing it.
That's a hate crime, or it will be. So I one more clarification on this writ of mandamus that Paul filed against the sheriff. We had several comments on our Facebook page. Open America now. Do all the, it was never about the validity of the order was not at issue. What was at issue was the sheriff's refusal to enforce said order. His unilateral decision that somehow this is the state of Baldwin, and he had the authority to make the decision as to whether or not he was going to enforce this order or not. So just wanted to make that clarification, make sure everybody knows.
Well, the other thing too, let me say, is that I can't believe the distinction of some people because I took action like this. They think that labeling me now, oh, well, it's obvious that you're a liberal. I am an independent, and most independents that you speak to are very, very independent. They may be liberal on certain issues, but they're probably staunchly conservative on other issues. That's why they're independent. So, and that's where I sit right there. Independent.
So Paul, I got something I need to tell you about now. This anti-feminine.
Sorry.
So what I was going to say was contrarians are important. And I don't give a damn what kind of video this woman wants to put together. I don't think that I don't believe that these people should be deplatformed because of the content of their message. I understand that it may be contrary to what the CDC is saying, and you and I know or may believe that it's total BS. But Paul Ripp, you are the contrarian, and today you were the person who took it upon himself to spend money and go to court and fight for something you believed in. And I think contrarians are important, and I don't think they should be deplatformed. If you don't want to go watch their crap, or just the video that you're talking about, I actually commented on, and I said this is total garbage. Nothing that I heard made any sense.
Yeah.
And then when I researched her further and found out, just go check her out on Wikipedia. It's just god awful. And I don't want to say her name because I don't want to give her any publicity. But it was
Right. I don't either.
But contrarians are important, Paul, and it's a terrible decision, I believe, on the part of Google, YouTube, whoever, Alphabet, and Twitter to deplatform people because of their message. I mean, this is the new public square, for lack of a better word, and you have to agree to their terms of service to use their platform. So then when this pandemic came along, they changed the terms of service to suit their needs and said anyone who's saying anything that's against the CDC guidelines or WHO guidelines is going to be removed from our platform. And I think that's dangerous. So terribly dangerous, Paul.
Well, it is, and so is the telephone, the way they can follow you with the telephone and everything else. But, we're talking about a health crisis here, and the people are giving out information like, try a shot of Lysol. Somebody needs to clarify it that, that skull and crossbones on the back of Lysol means death. Do not do it. So, it's kind of crazy how you will, what some people will believe because they are being told by what they think is an authority or something. I mean, it really is.
I kind of feel like, Jeff Foxworthy, when he talked about it on the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, he said, we live in a society where Sterno's got to print labels with the warning on them, do not eat. So maybe we'd have a better society if they just stopped printing that label. So,
yeah, really.
Well, and so, Paul, to finish my thought on the contrarians, okay, if you sit down and watch CNN, Fox, Channel 5 News, read the New York Times, the Lanyap, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and whatever the rag they put out in Houston, Texas every day, you have to understand or at least take into consideration who owns the paper, what might their intentions be. I mean, most of the people that watch CNN don't like President Trump, and they certainly follow that programming guide. And on the other side, you have Fox News, and the president's give them an exclusive interviews and things like that. Because I don't know if he gets scripted or not. It certainly looks scripted to me when he's on there. So anything you consume from the media, you should filter through your own. Yeah.
Right.
I
listen to a lot of different channels.
Experience.
Well, I listen to a lot of different channels, including Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and then some international channels. And I'll do that sometimes just on, say, a particular story and see the spin from each one.
Absolutely.
The way that it goes. And it can be very, very interesting. It really can. Sometimes
that's the way that I distill all of my news, is through a multifaceted approach to it. If I read something, I say, all right, let me track that down. And I'll look at CNN, I'll look at Fox, I'll look at MSNBC, I'll look at ABC, NBC, CBS, then I'll look at Reuters, then I'll look at The Guardian, then I'll look at Al Jazeera, then I'll look at Itar Tass. I distill it. You get all those sources and you corroborate. Somewhere within there lies the truth. And as a former news professional, that's how I do things. That's how we've always done it.
Well, the other day I had someone call me, and they were raising Cain that they looked on the CDC platform, and it said that only like 40,000 people had been killed by COVID-19. And, yet the TV was showing an actual figure of 68,000. And I said, well, look, I don't know what the difference is. I said, but let me do a little checking. And what happened was the CDC numbers are when they have the death certificate recorded. And the other number that you may see on MSNBC, CNN, those large numbers, that is a death without providing the death certificate. In other words, Thomas Hospital has a death. It reports it to the state reports it federally, and that can all be done in one day. Whereas the CDC having to come up with the death certificate, they can be 1 week to 8 weeks behind in the posting of the number. So if you're patient, you will see the CDC number rising all the time as these death certificates come in. So the only confusion is the way that the two of them are recording it. That's all.
Well, boys, with Mother's Day coming up, I got to watch Fox News from now until I take my mother something for lunch on Sunday, so I'll have something to talk to her about. I'm telling you, that woman is hooked on Fox News. Do you have anybody like that in your immediate presence, Reigns?
I don't want to talk about it.
I'm going to pass too.
Well, I mean, if she watched CNN all day, I'd go watch that so I could have a conversation with her about that too. And Reigns, do you subscribe to Vanity Fair?
I do.
Little more, they're not rushing to press. It's a magazine. They take a little more time. I kind of like their
Vanity
stuff.
Vanity Fair's got some of the best writing across the timeline that I've ever seen. Some of the best feature reporting I've ever seen, and it was in the time that I was writing one of the top markets in the country.
Yeah. Well, I try to read what I can of theirs when I have time. So, Paul, what's up for the weekend? You going to?
That's it. I'm just doing some painting and taking down popcorn ceilings and going to bid on some paint jobs down at the beach. I love to paint at the beach, and I'm going to keep my mask off and social distance and hit anybody with my brush that comes close.
How about you, Reigns? What you got going on?
We're staying safe. We're staying home, grilling up some stuff, take over to my mother and father for Mother's Day. And that's pretty much it. The Friday Night Fiasco's tonight, if any of y'all are interested in tuning in.
What time?
10 o'clock.
All right, I'll be there. So last week we had a little bit too much fun and missed your program. I'm sorry.
Well, we're going to have a little bit too much fun tonight. I can tell you that. I got a brand new shirt to debut. I got a new shirt every week.
So. Kids, had your wife, and had your husband, and everybody out here. So y'all need to.
Little Antoine Dobson for you. All right, guys. Well, I certainly appreciate y'all participating. I thought it was a good one. What number is this, Paul?
I think this is 34. Everybody be 35. Safe and 35. Everybody be safe and rest assured the sheriff is going to enforce the order.
There you go. Y'all have a good weekend, y'all.
All right.